October 24th, 1944. Philippines Sea, 180 nautical miles northeast of Luzon. The rising sun casts long shadows across the flight deck of the Imperial Japanese Navy carrier Zuikaku as Commander Takeshi Yamamoto adjusts his leather flight helmet one final time. Behind him, 23 Mitsubishi A6M50 fighters are being fueled and armed for what intelligence reports suggest will be a routine strike against a small American convoy. The mission briefing was simple: locate and destroy 2, possibly 3 American escort carriers with minimal fighter protection. What Yamamoto and his pilots are about to discover will shatter everything they thought they knew about American naval aviation. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The goal is devastatingly simple: survive an encounter with the largest concentration of carrier-based fighters ever assembled in naval warfare. At 0630 hours, Yamamoto leads his formation into the dawn sky, climbing steadily toward their patrol altitude of 20,000 feet. The morning air is crisp and clear, with unlimited visibility stretching to the horizon. His pilots maintain tight formation, their Zeros cutting through the Pacific air with the deadly grace that had made them feared throughout the early war years. Intelligence estimates suggest they will encounter perhaps 20 to 30 American Grumman F6F Hellcats protecting the convoy, a manageable threat for experienced Japanese aviators flying the legendary Zero. Lieutenant Commander Harrison, Thunderbolt Mackenzie, peers through his binoculars from the bridge of USS Enterprise, watching the final preparations for what will become known as the largest defensive fighter sweep in Pacific naval history. Behind him, on the flight deck, ordnance crews are completing final checks on 96 Grumman F6F Hellcats, each loaded with 6.5 caliber machine guns and 2,400 rounds of ammunition. The task force designation TF-38, painted on the island superstructure, represents not just one carrier, but 4 massive fleet carriers operating in perfect coordination: Enterprise, Intrepid, Franklin, and Ticonderoga. What the Japanese don't know is that American industrial might has transformed carrier aviation from small defensive formations into overwhelming offensive juggernauts. Each Essex-class carrier in Task Force 38 operates with a standard air group of 36 fighters, 36 dive bombers, and 18 torpedo bombers. But on this October morning, Admiral Frederick Bull Maddox has made a tactical decision that will redefine carrier warfare. Strip the dive bombers and torpedo planes to maximize fighter coverage. The result is 144 F6F Hellcats ready for combat, 6 times more fighters than Japanese intelligence believes possible. The contrast between the opposing forces extends far beyond simple numbers. Commander Yamamoto's A6M50s represent the pinnacle of Japanese aviation engineering circa 1940, optimized for maximum maneuverability and range at the expense of armor protection and firepower. Each Zero carries 2 20mm Type 99 cannons in the wings with 60 rounds per gun, plus 2 7.7mm Type 97 machine guns in the fuselage with 500 rounds each. The total weight of fire per second, approximately 4.2 pounds, delivered by a fighter that weighs just 6,025 pounds fully loaded. The Zero's legendary maneuverability comes from its lightweight construction and massive wing area of 229.27 square feet, giving it a wing loading of just 26.4 pounds per square foot. This allows the A6M5 to turn inside virtually any Allied fighter in a dogfight, a capability that had dominated Pacific skies from Pearl Harbor through the Guadalcanal campaign. Japanese pilot training emphasized this advantage, teaching aviators to force American fighters into turning engagements where the Zero's superior agility would prove decisive. But by October 1944, the tactical landscape has shifted dramatically. Lieutenant Jake Morrison checks his instrument panel aboard his F6F Hellcat as the massive American formation climbs toward intercept altitude. His fighter represents 3 years of combat-driven evolution in American aviation technology. The Hellcat weighs 12,441 pounds fully loaded, more than twice the Zero's weight, but carries 6 AN M2.5 caliber machine guns with 400 rounds per gun. The total weight of fire per second, 8.4 pounds, exactly double that of the Japanese fighter. More critically, the Hellcat incorporates lessons learned from early Pacific combat. The cockpit is protected by armor plating and bulletproof glass. The fuel tanks are self-sealing, preventing catastrophic fires when hit. The Pratt & Whitney R2800 double wasp engine produces 2,000 horsepower compared to the Zero's 1,130 horsepower Nakajima NK1 F6F, giving the American fighter decisive advantages in speed, climb rate, and dive performance. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now, back to the story. Japanese Zero production tells a different story. Mitsubishi has produced approximately 3,300 A6M Zeros by late 1944, but production has slowed to 180 aircraft per month due to material shortages and Allied bombing of industrial facilities. More critically, Japanese pilot training has been reduced from 18 months to 3 months due to fuel shortages and the loss of experienced instructors in earlier battles. Many of the Zero pilots approaching Task Force 38 have fewer than 50 hours of flight time in their aircraft. The logistical disparity extends to every aspect of operations. American carriers operate with unlimited aviation gasoline supplies, allowing extensive training flights and combat air patrols. Task Force 38 has burned 2.3 million gallons of aviation fuel in the past week alone, a consumption rate that would exhaust Japan's entire monthly production in 4 days. American ordnance supplies are equally abundant. The task force carries 14,400 rounds of .50 caliber ammunition per fighter, enough for extended combat operations without resupply. Japanese carriers face critical fuel shortages that limit training and operational flexibility. The Zuikaku has sufficient aviation gasoline for approximately 40 combat sorties, less than 2 full strikes by her remaining air group. Ammunition supplies are equally constrained, with many Zero pilots carrying reduced loadouts to conserve scarce 20mm cannon shells. The broader Japanese fuel crisis means that experienced pilots cannot maintain proficiency through regular training flights, while new pilots receive minimal instruction before being thrust into combat. Personnel quality differences have become equally pronounced. Lieutenant Commander Mackenzie completed 350 hours of advanced fighter training before joining VF-32 aboard Enterprise. His squadron mates averaged 280 hours of flight training plus extensive gunnery practice using target sleeves towed by retired aircraft. American pilot training emphasizes formation flying, radio discipline, and coordinated attack tactics that maximize the effectiveness of large fighter formations. Commander Yamamoto, despite his experience dating back to Pearl Harbor, leads a squadron where half his pilots have fewer than 100 hours total flight time. Japanese training focuses on individual combat skills and spiritual preparation rather than coordinated formation tactics. The cultural emphasis on individual warrior prowess, while inspiring, proves increasingly inadequate against American pilots trained to fight as integrated units with overlapping fields of fire. The maintenance disparities further compound Japanese disadvantages. American carriers operate with machine shops, spare parts inventories, and technical specialists that can repair or rebuild aircraft engines at sea. The Enterprise carries 2,400 different spare parts for F6F6 maintenance, plus specialized tools and technical manuals for complex repairs. Hellcat reliability means that typical availability rates exceed 85%, keeping the maximum number of fighters ready for combat operations. Japanese carriers struggle with spare parts shortages that ground aircraft for extended periods. The Zuikaku carries spare parts for approximately 60% of required maintenance procedures, forcing mechanics to cannibalize damaged aircraft to keep others flying. Zero reliability has declined due to wartime production shortcuts and the use of substitute materials as strategic resources become scarce. Typical availability rates have dropped to 65%, reducing the effective strength of Japanese air groups even before combat losses. Radio communication technology provides another American advantage. Every F6F Hellcat carries an AN/RC5 radio with crystal-controlled frequency stability and clear voice communication at ranges exceeding 100 miles. American fighters can coordinate attacks, share target information, and call for assistance with unprecedented clarity. The radios operate on multiple frequencies, allowing flight leaders to communicate with their pilots while monitoring task force tactical nets. Japanese Zeros carry Type 96 radios with limited range and poor voice quality that degrades rapidly with distance or atmospheric interference. Many Zero pilots rely primarily on visual signals and predetermined tactical plans, reducing their ability to adapt to changing combat situations. The limited radio capability means that Japanese formations often become separated during combat, allowing American fighters to engage smaller groups with local numerical superiority. Weather and navigation capabilities further favor American forces. Each Hellcat carries a complete instrument panel with artificial horizon, directional gyro, and radio compass that allow operations in adverse weather conditions. American pilots receive extensive instrument training, enabling them to maintain formation and navigate accurately even in clouds or reduced visibility. Task Force 38 operates with sophisticated radar systems that can track friendly and enemy aircraft at ranges exceeding 200 miles. Zero pilots rely primarily on visual navigation and basic instruments that limit operations to clear weather conditions. The lack of comprehensive instrument training means that Japanese formations often become scattered when encountering clouds or poor visibility. Japanese carriers have limited radar capability, reducing their ability to provide early warning or fighter direction to their combat air patrols. The psychological preparation of the two forces reflects their different strategic situations. American pilots approach the Philippine Sea operations with confidence born from 18 months of steady victories across the Pacific. The Hellcat has proven its superiority over the Zero in dozens of major engagements, giving American aviators tactical confidence that enhances their already superior equipment. They know that their industrial base can replace any losses while continuously improving their aircraft and weapons. Japanese pilots carry the psychological burden of defending their homeland approaches against an enemy that seems to possess unlimited resources. The loss of experienced squadron mates in earlier battles has created a grim awareness that survival depends more on luck than skill. Many Zero pilots write final letters to their families before major missions, reflecting their understanding that Japanese aviation is fighting a losing battle against American industrial might. The strategic context surrounding this confrontation reveals the broader implications of industrial warfare. American shipyards have launched 6 Essex-class carriers in 1944 alone, with 8 more under construction. The U.S. Navy operates with 12 fleet carriers in the Pacific, supported by dozens of escort carriers that handle secondary missions. This massive carrier fleet represents the largest concentration of naval aviation in history, capable of projecting American air power across thousands of miles of ocean. Japan operates with 4 remaining fleet carriers after catastrophic losses at the Philippine Sea and Leyte Gulf. The Imperial Navy has no new carriers under construction due to material shortages and the prioritization of defensive weapons. Japanese carrier aviation exists as a wasting asset that cannot be replaced once expended, forcing commanders to husband their remaining strength, while American forces operate with the luxury of overwhelming superiority. The October 24th confrontation represents more than just a tactical engagement between opposing fighter formations. It embodies the fundamental transformation of Pacific naval warfare from the balanced fleet actions of 1942 to the overwhelming American dominance of 1944. The Zero fighters approaching Task Force 38 carry the weight of Japanese hopes for a decisive victory that might salvage their deteriorating strategic position. American Hellcats climbing to meet them represent the inexorable advance of American industrial power translated into military capability. The 144 fighters of Task Force 38 prove that American factories can produce not just adequate weapons, but overwhelming concentrations of superior equipment operated by extensively trained personnel backed by unlimited logistical support.
At 0712 hours, Petty Officer First Class Kenji Nakamura, manning the radar scope aboard the destroyer Akizuki, notices an unusual contact bearing 085 degrees at a range of 78 nautical miles. The contact appears as a single large blip on his primitive Type 22 surface search radar, modified for limited air detection capability. Nakamura calls out the contact to Lieutenant Hiroshi Tanaka, the ship's air defense officer, who immediately recognizes the significance. What appears to be one contact is actually multiple aircraft flying in such tight formation that they merge into a single radar return. Contact bearing 085, range 70 nautical miles, multiple aircraft, Nakamura reports, his voice carrying across the destroyer's cramped combat information center. The radar operator's training tells him this could be anywhere from 12 to 30 aircraft, a substantial force but nothing beyond expectations for American escort carriers operating with light fighter coverage. The Japanese task force has encountered similar formations before, typically 20 to 25 F6 Hellcats providing routine combat air patrol over vulnerable escort carriers. Lieutenant Tanaka immediately relays the contact information to Commander Yamamoto's formation via high-frequency radio. The transmission crackles through the morning air. Thunder Leader, this is Castle Base. Multiple bogies bearing 085 from your position, range 70 nautical miles, estimated strength 20 to 30 aircraft. Recommend intercept course 090. The message reaches Yamamoto's formation as they level off at 22,000 feet, their zeros maintaining the diamond formation that has served Japanese naval aviation since the war's beginning. Commander Yamamoto acknowledges the transmission with characteristic brevity. Castle Base, Thunder Leader copies, proceeding to intercept. He signals his formation with a sharp wing waggle, the universal aviation signal for course change, and banks his A6M50 toward the reported contact bearing. Behind him, 22 additional Zeros follow in perfect synchronization, their pilots confident in their ability to handle what intelligence suggests is a routine escort force. What neither Nakamura's radar nor Japanese intelligence reveals is the revolution in American carrier operations that has occurred over the past 18 months. Task Force 38 operates under a new tactical doctrine developed by Admiral Raymond Spruance and refined through bloody experience at the Philippine Sea. Maximum fighter concentration achieved by stripping carriers from strike aircraft when defending against major threats. The Big Blue Blanket doctrine calls for coordinated defensive sweeps involving every available fighter from multiple carriers. Aboard USS Enterprise, Air Group Commander Robert Steele Patterson monitors the tactical display in the carrier's brand-new Combat Information Center. The CIC represents the latest advancement in naval warfare technology, a darkened room filled with radar scopes, plotting boards, and radio equipment that allows real-time coordination of air operations across the entire task force. Patterson watches as friendly contacts designated Blue Flight climb toward intercept altitude, their IFF transponders painting clear blue diamonds on the scope. Control, Blue Leader, crackles the voice of Lieutenant Commander William Ace Thompson over the tactical frequency. Blue Flight, level at Angels 22, heading 070, 96 aircraft in formation. The transmission confirms what appears impossible to Japanese intelligence. Nearly 100 American fighters operating as a single coordinated unit. This represents more firepower than the entire Japanese carrier force can muster, concentrated into one devastating formation.
The American formation consists of 4 distinct elements, each comprising 24 F6F Hellcats from individual carrier air groups. VF-32 from Enterprise leads the formation, followed by VF-18 from Intrepid, VF-5 from Franklin, and VF-80 from Ticonderoga. Each squadron maintains internal radio discipline while monitoring the task force tactical net, creating unprecedented coordination between units that have been training together for 6 months. Lieutenant Jake Hammer Morrison flies as element leader in the 2nd Division of VF-32, his Hellcat designated White 23, carrying the distinctive markings of the Enterprise Air Group. Morrison's aircraft represents the pinnacle of American fighter development. 2,000 horsepower driving a 3-blade Hamilton Standard propeller, 6.5 caliber machine guns with 2,400 rounds of armor-piercing incendiary ammunition, and enough fuel for 4 hours of combat operations. His cockpit displays the latest American avionics, IFF transponder, VHF radio with crystal-controlled frequency stability, and instruments that allow formation flying in any weather conditions. The tactical situation developing over the Philippine Sea represents more than just numerical superiority. American fighters approach the engagement with the benefit of comprehensive radar coverage provided by the task force's screening destroyers and the carriers themselves. The SK-2 air search radars aboard each Essex-class carrier can track individual aircraft at ranges exceeding 150 miles, providing American pilots with complete situational awareness before visual contact occurs. Commander Yamamoto's formation approaches the engagement essentially blind. Japanese radar technology lags approximately 2 years behind American developments, with limited range and poor discrimination between individual targets. The Type 22 radar aboard Akizuki can detect large formations at extended range, but cannot provide accurate target counts or precise tracking information. Japanese pilots must rely on visual identification for tactical decision-making, placing them at severe disadvantage against enemies who know their exact position, course, and speed. At 0724 hours, the two formations close to within 45 nautical miles of each other. Aboard Enterprise, radar operator Seaman First Class Bobby Eyes Rodriguez calls out the developing tactical picture. Control: multiple bogies bearing 060, range 45 miles, estimated 20-plus aircraft in formation. The American estimate proves remarkably accurate. Japanese formation discipline allows radar operators to count individual aircraft as the range decreases and radar resolution improves. Lieutenant Commander Thompson, leading the massive American formation, receives continuous updates from the Task Force CIC. Blue Leader: control. Bogies now bearing 062, range 40 miles, confirmed 23 aircraft. Vector 065 for intercept, maintain Angels 22. The precision of American fighter direction contrasts sharply with Japanese pilots, who must navigate using dead reckoning and visual landmarks while maintaining radio silence to avoid detection. The disparity in pilot experience becomes apparent as both formations maneuver for advantage. American pilots average 320 hours of flight time in F6F Hellcats, with extensive training in formation flying, radio procedures, and coordinated attack tactics. Squadron training emphasizes mutual support doctrine, where pairs of fighters work together to engage enemy aircraft, with one pilot attacking while his wingman provides protective overwatch. This tactical approach maximizes the Hellcat's firepower advantage while minimizing the Zero's maneuverability benefits. Commander Yamamoto's formation includes pilots with varying experience levels, from veterans like himself with over 1,000 hours of combat time, to recent graduates of abbreviated training programs with fewer than 150 total flight hours. Japanese tactical doctrine still emphasizes individual combat skills and the spiritual preparation that served well in earlier phases of the war, but proves increasingly inadequate against opponents who fight as integrated units with overlapping fields of fire. The ammunition loads carried by each formation reveal the fundamental differences in their strategic situations. Each F6F Hellcat carries 400 rounds per gun for its 6.5 caliber machine guns, 2,400 rounds total of armor-piercing incendiary ammunition, manufactured to exacting specifications at American ordnance plants operating at full capacity. American pilots know they have sufficient ammunition for extended combat operations, allowing them to engage multiple targets without conservation concerns. Japanese Zero pilots carry 60 rounds per gun for their two 20mm cannons, plus 500 rounds each for their 7.7mm machine guns. While the 20mm cannon shells deliver more explosive power per hit than .5 caliber rounds, the limited ammunition supply forces Japanese pilots to carefully conserve their fire for high-probability shots. This ammunition constraint affects tactical decision-making, as Zero pilots cannot afford the suppressive fire tactics that American pilots use to break up enemy formations. The fuel situations of the opposing forces further illustrate their different operational capabilities. F6F Hellcats carry 250 gallons of aviation gasoline in self-sealing tanks, providing approximately 4 hours of flight time, including combat operations. American pilots approach this engagement knowing they have sufficient fuel to pursue fleeing enemies and conduct extended combat air patrol after the initial engagement. The massive logistical capacity of American carriers means that fuel conservation is rarely a tactical consideration. A6 M50s carry 156 gallons of aviation gasoline in non-self-sealing tanks, providing approximately 2.5 hours of flight time under combat conditions. Japanese pilots must constantly balance combat aggressiveness against fuel conservation, as running low on fuel over the vast Pacific means certain death. The chronic fuel shortages affecting Japanese operations means that every gallon must be carefully husbanded for essential missions. At 0731 hours, both formations reach the critical moment where radar contact will transition to visual identification. American radar operators report, "Control, bogies bearing 068, range 25 miles, multiple aircraft maintaining formation." The precision of American tracking allows fighter directors to position their formation for maximum tactical advantage, approaching from the enemy's blind spot with the sun at their backs.
Commander Yamamoto strains his eyes against the morning glare, searching for the first visual contact with enemy aircraft. Japanese pilots have trained extensively in visual identification of American aircraft types, but their intelligence briefings have not prepared them for the shock they are about to experience. Every tactical calculation assumes they will face a manageable number of enemies, perhaps 30 fighters at most, rather than the overwhelming force actually approaching. The moment of visual contact will shatter Japanese assumptions about American carrier operations and reveal the true extent of American industrial transformation of naval warfare. What Commander Yamamoto expects to see, a small formation of American escort fighters, will instead materialize as the largest concentration of carrier-based fighters ever assembled for a single engagement. The tactical shock of this discovery will paralyze Japanese decision-making at the critical moment when aggressive action might still provide some chance of success. American pilots, by contrast, approach this engagement with complete confidence in their numerical and technological superiority. They know exactly what they face: 23 Japanese fighters that pose minimal threat to a formation of 96 modern F6F Hellcats flown by extensively trained pilots. The psychological advantage of certain victory enhances the already overwhelming material advantages that American forces bring to this confrontation. The catalyst moment approaching over the Philippine Sea will demonstrate how industrial capacity translates into tactical dominance in modern warfare. Japanese pilots flying superior aircraft by 1940 standards will encounter American aircraft representing 3 years of combat-driven technological advancement supported by unlimited industrial resources. The shock of discovering they face 4 times more enemies than expected will symbolize Japan's broader realization that they are fighting an opponent whose resources dwarf their own. As the two formations converge toward visual contact range, the stage is set for an engagement that will prove decisive. Numerical superiority, backed by superior technology, creates overwhelming tactical advantages that cannot be overcome through courage or skill alone. The mathematics of modern aerial warfare favor those who can field the most advanced aircraft in crushing numbers, operated by extensively trained pilots, backed by unlimited logistical support.